welcome to another episode of Motivating Monday. Today I will be sharing on the topic faith and humility, based on Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 and 6, which reads, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." First, let us define trust. What does trust mean? What does it mean when you say you trust someone? Google told me that trust means to firmly accept someone's ability as true, especially without proof. When you trust someone enough to do what they say instead of what you feel you should do, it means that you trust that they have the ability to make a better decision than you. So even if you don't have the capacity to understand why, you just accept it humbly and you do it. So what does it mean to trust God? Let me give you an example. In the Ten Commandments, and also in Matthew 5:21, the Bible implies that murder is not good, in commanding us not to do so. And if I asked you to prove that murder is bad, could you? You probably can't. Even if you may think think that it is wrong. In fact, many people in the world support murder. There are a lot of murderers that think they can justify their actions. And there are terrorists, extremists, and on the not so extreme side, you have stuff like people that support abortion and maybe euthanasia or some other forms of more controversial stuff. So in their minds, it's very clear that murder is okay and it's justifiable. But what if God says murder is bad, without a 5,000-page essay to elaborate on his point or to provide scientific or logical proof? And he didn't do that. He just told us that murder is bad and not to do it. So that's what trust is. It is faith to look at this command and go, God says it, and so I believe it. That's all I need. There's no need for it to make sense. There's no need for it to make perfect sense and based on the very fundamentals of logic, which we can't even prove. It's just God says it and you believe it. Because there's no need for it to make sense with humans, since God is omniscient and we don't know much anyway. There's no way we're going to be able to understand God's intentions. He knows everything and he certainly knows better than us. And so in order to accept this, in order to have faith, we must be humble enough to accept that we simply are inferior to God intellectually and in every other way. And this is why I say humility and faith go together. If someone isn't humble, it will be very difficult for him to submit wholly to a being that is infinitely better than him in every possible way. It will be very hard for him to accept this fact. And it will be difficult for such a person to do things God's way instead of his own way, when he thinks that he makes more sense than God. For example, certain commandments like children obey your parents. Maybe it's like he may think that children have have access to more modern information and better times, so they should be able to make their own decisions and know themselves better. And so they shouldn't have to listen to their parents. Or stuff like maybe we should eat rice instead of unleavened bread. Or maybe something like we need a choir and a band for worship because to tap into talent or whatever. And these are all things that we may not make, we may not be able to justify that directly, and it may not make perfect sense to us as humans. But we need to be humble and accept that God knows more than all of us, and he wants the best for us. He has blessed us with his word. He has prepared a place for us in heaven, and he wants us all to go there. So it's really for our own good. We better listen to everything that he says and everything in his word. It's like when an all-powerful, all-seeing being loves you, you know what it means? It means that if you love him back, then you will literally be as happy as possible. It will not even be possible to be happier in the end if we follow God's commandments. And we've talked about trust or faith in God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, right? As another verse, James 2:26, it tells us that faith without works is dead. So how do we show, what works can we do that show that we trust God? Well, theoretically, it's pretty simple. We just follow his commandments. I want you to imagine you're supposed to play chess against the world champion. But you have the help obviously going to lose, but then suddenly I tell you have the help of Stockfish, which is the most powerful chess engine in the world. And no human has ever beaten Stockfish since 2008. So would you rather rely on your own understanding of the game, or would you trust what the engine tells you to do? And I don't care what your answer is, just which one do you think is more likely to win the game? And it's like every year humans try to challenge Stockfish and other engines under tournament conditions, and even with severe time handicaps in the human's favor, again and again, the engines have proven that they are trustworthy because they never fail, they've never lost. And even and now we look at God. He is a God that cannot fail. He has never failed, and He has proven Himself again and again. And even though we fail, He always forgives us and extends His mercy, no matter how deep we are in sin. God has shown more than any other engine or anything else in the world again and again that He is deserving of our trust. And so there's no reason not to trust God. Life throws us a lot of choices. We're gonna have to make many important decisions with long-term effects and stuff. But stuff like having a career, choosing a partner, choosing your friends, your hobbies, and it's like how do we choose things in a way that God would be happy with? In all our ways, we have to acknowledge Him, right? In all our ways, everything in our life. Think of God in everything you do, and He will direct your paths. He will provide a way to heaven for you. He wants all of us to go to heaven. That's why the Bible is here. It tells us how. It shows us everything we need. But it's just, I know some things are simple, but they are still very, very, very difficult to execute. It's much harder to make choices and decisions in real life compared to just theorizing about them, because you will definitely have things that you want to do as well. Humans have the tendency to prioritize dopamine. You know why I say dopamine, which is like stuff that makes you temporarily happy or like feel good. It's because if you truly prioritize yourself, like imagine it's like you say, I want to prioritize myself. I have to focus on my career rather than go to church. Yeah, but if you truly prioritize yourself, you recognize that the only thing that meaningful that you can do for yourself is to just get to heaven. Like, and that's why if you do anything else, you're just prioritizing your dopamine, which is, yeah, it can be really hard to not do that though, and it's really hard to trust God and to acknowledge Him sometimes. But we have to remember that the reward is much greater than we can ever imagine, and on the flip side, the punishment is much worse than anything that we can understand. So keeping this in mind, we can use the tools that God gave us to help us trust Him more. There's so many things that He's blessed us with, things like prayer, church friends, Bible study, and even just random stuff that just relieve your stress of the world, like stuff like nature, His creation. You look up at the sky. You can't really see stars, but like there's a lot of beautiful stuff around. It's like stuff like music and art and other forms of creative expression. It's just so many beautiful blessings that we have on this earth. Well, I mean, alongside a lot of other painful things, but God will always provide a way. And if we all walk on Christian race together, it's actually, well, it won't be easy, but it's always possible. And with support from Christian friends, I believe that we can all make it together. And if we keep our hearts humble enough to trust in God, then I do believe we will all end up in heaven together, right? And that's the end of my sharing. Thank you for listening.
Holy Lord.